Good evening and welcome to the Vigilate Dialogues. I am your host, Shaina Smith, welcoming you to another episode of the National Boardroom. Tonight, we're going to be discussing human rights. And my guest this evening is Ms. Sandra Phillip-Hodge from the organization Related by Humanity. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you very much, Shaina. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Well, one of the topics that I've started looking at, just to give you a backdrop, we started doing series on different topics. So I, over the holidays, was talking to a friend and we were talking about the importance of human rights. So I thought, this is something that we don't talk enough about or hear enough about, maybe once a year.
Right.
So it's something that I like for us to explore some more and bring more public awareness as far as what it is.
Yes.
So you have an organization called Related by Humanity. Tell us a little bit about that and your interest in human rights.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say good evening to the audience. I know some of my friends and family members may be looking. And although we're 3 weeks into the new year, for those who I haven't seen to say personally, I would like to say Happy New Year. And Shaina, thank you very much for inviting me here to have this talk with you on a subject that is very close to my heart. Related by Humanity. It's not so much of an organization, seeing that I'm really the person who does it. And I call it a lifestyle concept. The idea came to me in 2008 while I was reading some information about the 60th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And because it was such a big celebration, the 60th, there were so many different things that were being highlighted. And it occurred to me that the wider world, we are part of a global community, but out there, everybody's doing something about human rights, promoting human rights. And at that time, we weren't doing anything here about it. You hardly heard any mention about human rights here, except, of course, when we listen to the BBC and you might hear something about human rights violations, some place where they have political strife and wars and stuff like that. But other than that, we were totally, I don't know if I should say ignorant, but totally unaware of really what human rights was all about. So I took it on myself and I got some more information, and I found a website that was offering some packages for teaching young people about human rights. And I wrote to them. They sent me the tools, and I started talking to youth groups. I went into some of the schools and gave presentations on it. And it was very interesting to see the response.
So how long have you been doing this?
Well, this started sometime around 2009. Yes, I actively began promoting human rights awareness. When they had the first youth rally, that was 2010, I think it was. Yes, I had one of those little setup where I offered packages of information to the people who came to that event. Yes. And I have been off and on doing little articles, and wherever the opportunity arises, I would present to young people groups. Yes.
So this is like your personal platform. So why is it important to you? Why did you pick this as something that this is your cause?
Because I understand that knowing what your rights are and knowing what other people's rights are is very essential for the preservation of peace and justice. It's very important. And a lot of things that we take for granted, even something like the right to privacy, people might think, oh, you just don't want nobody to know your business or you're secretive or anything like that. But it is your right to keep your privacy, your private affairs, your personal belongings private if you don't want to expose or share or whatever you want to say. I mean, you have, it's about preserving your dignity. It's about having that personal space that is inviolable.
Okay.
You know, it's about...
So there are certain entitlements that we're saying
yes,
everyone is guaranteed.
It's something that we are given at birth. I mean, every human being has that right.
Okay.
It's not just me, it's my right, but it's also your rights. And that's what I like about human rights. It's for everybody. It's for the young, the old, man and woman, black, white, whatever race you are.
Yeah.
You know, it's for everybody. You're born with your rights as long as you're a human being.
Okay.
You know. And we might lose other things that we are born with, but our rights are not one of those.
Okay. So what is a right? Define that for us as far as, I guess, the definition of a human right or a right.
Well, of course, it's an intangible thing, but it's the belief and it's the concept that because you are a human being and human beings have certain needs for dignity and self-esteem and protection and justice and all of that, fairness, equal opportunities, things like that. And in my research on this, I found that the Universal Declaration that was declared in 1948 was not the first attempt that was made to have this universal acknowledgement of humans' rights. As early back as in 1215, I think it was, there was the Magna Carta.
Okay.
You've heard of that?
Yeah.
Yes. And back in the feudal days when kings owned their kingdoms and all the lands and all the people in it, people had difficulty to assert their rights because everything was owned by the aristocracy and the people who had all the lands and stuff.
So they tend to treat them as property?
Yes,
okay.
yes. You had to work for the person who owned the land and you just got enough to subsist yourself. You didn't have right to education and health care and all those things.
Okay.
But as people evolve, as human society evolves and people realize, well, you know, we all are human beings. We all have the same needs. You know, we should be treated fairly. Yeah. You know, and people lobbied for their rights, and little by little, in 1628 there was another development called the Petition for Rights. These things happen in England and France and those European places.
Okay, so European countries.
Yes. So gradually, you know, people have been fighting, literally and intellectually, you know, for their rights, for the preservation of their rights, their human rights. You know.
Okay. Awesome. Well, if you just tune in, you're tuned into the Vigilate Dialogue, and our topic this evening is human rights. And if you have a question for our guest, Ms. Sandra Phillip-Hodge, you can call us at 499-7815, 499-7815. Okay, so we understand a little bit better now what human rights are. And I went and I pulled our Constitution so I can get an idea in terms of what we now have that came into effect with the 2007 Constitution order, because I don't think it was there listed as in the previous constitutions, was it?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, but we did have human rights that would have come down from the UK. Okay. And any country, as far as the United Nations Declaration, that applies to any country, or every country, I should say, or do you have to adopt it in your legislature?
Well, actually, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is not a legal entitlement to the people who are signed onto it, but it serves as a guideline, and actually our constitutional Bill of Rights is based on that, because there's the whole list of freedom to this, freedom to privacy, freedom to freedom of the right to a fair trial, health care, education, and the right to property, and all these things. The Human Rights Declaration has aided a lot in the formulation of the policies for different countries.
Okay, so the countries would use that as a template, so to speak, to create their bill that would be applicable for their local situation.
Right.
Okay. All right, awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break right here and get a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back. Welcome back. You're tuned into the Vigilate Dialogues. I'm your host, Shaina Smith, welcoming you to the National Boardroom. This evening, we're talking about a very important topic, human rights. And my guest tonight is Sandra Phillip-Hodge from Related by Humanity. So, Ms. Hodge, you say you've been going into the schools. How have the kids received these little talks?
Well, curiosity, of course. They want to know, well, what is human rights? And I would just basically tell them that, it's a very simple thing. It's about you having your rights to certain things. You have certain expectations, and they are actually valid expectations. And everyone has the same rights and should have the same expectations. And simple things like, in the school setting, you have your bag there, somebody might go and take out your lunch and all those kind of things. That's a violation of the person's human rights. You bring it down to practical level terms. Calling somebody names, that's a violation of human rights, because you are discriminating against the person when you say something derogatory or something abusive, because maybe somebody might have, something about them that you think is different. They might be too thin or too fat or too tall or too short or whatever the case might be. And you use that as something to tease them about. That is discriminating, right? And that's a violation of their human rights.
Okay. So when they hear you explain it in that type of way, how are they? Are they like, oh, I didn't know that?
Yes, I've had a lot of that kind of expression. Yes.
What are some of the questions that they might ask?
Well, some of them, I remember one instance with a particular school. I wouldn't call the name of the school, but when I talk about the right to privacy, one of the students said that, so that means their parents was wrong for taking off the door from their bedroom. But I said, well, your parents have a right to, it's their house and you're still a minor, but there must be a very valid reason why they did that. And I know, young people, they might lock themselves up and they might spend time on the phone or the TV or computer all day and, and think that, okay, well, this is my space. Yes, it is your space. But under the parenting rule, the parent have to decide what is best for the child within their home. So I could not say, well, the parent was wrong for taking off the door. There must be a valid reason for that. There must be something that they consider in the child's best interest why they would do something. Yes. But under normal circumstances, if you have your own house or you rent your apartment and somebody come and broke open your door or something like that, that is definitely a violation of your rights, right? So.
Okay. Well, that was an interesting one.
Yes, yes.
Sounds like they might have been ready to go home and plead their case. That is
Yes.
awesome. So you go around to different schools. So schools can contact you if they, after seeing the program, that they would like you to
Of
come in to
course,
do
yes.
a presentation.
I would do that in my my spare time, yes. And I could make time available to even meet with them on weekends,
Okay.
like different youth groups, maybe Rotaract or some of the other youth clubs, stuff like that. I do enjoy talking to young people about it because, as I say, it's an avenue to creating and promoting peace, promoting justice in the society, and we can't really develop and progress without knowing the fundamentals about how to live in harmony and peace, you know.
Yeah, because it fosters social cohesion.
Yes, 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 yes. And if people, if young people understand the magnitude of what they do, I think they might think twice before they do it. You know, if they put it in the context of a universal context, you know, it's not just a little thing here between me and my friend, but you know, we are part of a global society.
Yeah, and they may not just live here all the time.
They
need to be able to
go
into
even
another
when you
country.
travel out, what to expect, you know, and how people what people expect from you, you know.
Yeah.
So yes, I do have some very good conversations. The questions from the kids are always stimulating, and we do get into it, and I think that, you know, they learn a lot from it, yes.
Yeah, I think that's very key, because I can see now where, you know, in terms of developing responsible citizens, it starts at that age.
Yes, yes.
It starts at that age.
We are naturally selfish creatures, and especially among young people, it's all about, you know, me. And when you think about in the context of human rights, that you have all these rights, but then you share all these rights with the next person.
Yeah.
They have all the same rights as you, you know.
Very interesting.
Yes.
And you know, I just thought about, you know, I'm a political junkie. And in the context of this, the U.S. politics now are basically has taken a very discriminatory tone. And I'm wondering whether or not some of the things that are being suggested or even spoken about are possible without violating human rights, because you're discriminating against someone because of their religion, in terms of denying them entry into their country.
Well, I will say that now more than ever, in recent times, people have to go back to basics and look at the fundamental things and say, well, this should not be allowed because you know, it's a violation of the human rights. It's a violation of God's law, the highest moral standard. It's a violation of everything that we hold sacred and what we hold dear and what we know is part of, you know, what makes us human, what makes us dignified people, you know. And if you're not willing to stand up for these things, they will be trampled, they will be abused, they will be ignored, and sooner or later they will be forgotten if you don't keep them fresh in the forefront of people's mind, you know.
Yeah, because, you know, it became something where it snowballed, where because now he was advocating for blocking persons coming into America because of their religion.
Yes.
Then another country debated in their parliament the other day whether or not to block him from coming into their country.
Well, one of the fundamental human rights is the freedom of movement. Yes. And also freedom of expression, freedom of right to assembly, and all these other things. Now, within a particular border, there might be regulations about that.
Okay.
But, you know, in general terms, and in a free and democratic society, one would expect to have access to all of these freedoms and have their rights preserved.
Okay.
Yes.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So what are some of the issues, whether locally or internationally, that you have been following as it relates to human rights and the issues?
Well, one of the things that is very much a concern, maybe not here in the Caribbean so much, but in the wider world, is the trafficking, human trafficking, especially of young people for, what can I say, pornographic and other activities that are not suitable for children. And it's definitely a violation of their rights. It's something that we need to teach our children to be aware of, certain things that they should avoid getting into. And I must say that we have to teach young people to be obedient, to listen to their elders when they give them proper counseling and instructions about what not to do. Because most of the times when people are disobedient, they get into trouble. They go and they do the wrong things. They end up in a lot of trouble. And I heard a story about a young girl who was, this is in the States. She, she was just being idle and liming in places where she shouldn't lime. And she became a victim for this human trafficking thing, So although it is not acceptable under any circumstance for any adult to manipulate and
basically take away their rights.
Yes,
of the young person.
And take advantage of any young person. The young people have to know what to try and avoid.
Yeah.
To be safe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very key.
Yes.
So what else is out there? What about the fact that we don't have our Human Rights Commission yet? What do you know?
Well,
in regards to the setting up of it? I found an article online where Platinum talked about it or referred to it about maybe 2-3 years ago in terms of the fact that it wasn't established as yet, but then it was something that still was to be put in place, and the Constitution lays out as far as how it's done, where persons are nominated by the governor and I think with input from the premier. And because we need to have a place where we're able, that if there are, or persons feel that their human rights have been violated, where would they report that to now in the absence of the commission?
I think that is the whole thrust behind getting a commission, to have a reporting tribunal or something like that. But since the discussion or the meetings that were held, how long ago was it? About 5 years ago, thereabouts. I haven't heard anything further.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything further. I don't know at what stage it's at. I don't know how soon it is in the making to come. I don't know.
But it's definitely something we need sooner rather than later.
I think it would be helpful to have it. Even if it's just to help to create the awareness and to try to help to build a better society,
Okay.
in terms of educating people,
So the agency of redress then would be now the court system in the time being then?
Well, yes, I guess. Yes,
Okay.
Everything that has to be dealt with legally has to go through the courts.
Okay.
Regardless of what the nature of it is.
Yeah.
But of course, if we had specific human rights lawyers and human rights advocates, on a wider level, it would definitely help to maybe mitigate some of the issues of social injustice and so on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think we see issues with social justice here in the BVI?
Of course,
Of course.
especially among families.
Okay.
Yes, there are lots of family problems in this place, family issues that end up in the court without getting any proper resolutions, you know.
And you think it comes from a lack of understanding in terms of the human rights, or?
I think that's part of it, yes. And I think that individuals have to become more cognizant of trying to be better human beings, you know, by knowing their rights and knowing other people's rights and respecting themselves and respecting other people's rights and other people.
Okay.
Yes.
That's very important.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, humans, when you think about human rights, it's for humans. It's not for animals. It's not animals. It's humans we're talking about. And human beings need to think and act like human beings. You know.
Okay. So we're winding down our hour. And for those who may have just joined in, you're tuned into the Vigilate Dialogues, and I'm your host, Shaina Smith. And with me, I have Sandra Phillip-Hodge from Related by Humanity. And we've been talking about human rights and the importance of them to, cohesion in our society and better functioning, because then we respect one another on the basis of some fundamental rights and freedoms that we are all entitled to. So that's very key. And, touching on some of the issues, you mentioned about human trafficking, sex trafficking, sex slaves, all of those are things that we see oftentimes documentaries of on TV. I don't know if we understand whether or not that we do have touches of these things here in the BVI. And it's important for us to be, advocates for human rights for everybody.
Right.
And it's not just something that you're very passionate about. Let our viewers know how they can get in contact with you if they have a youth group or at their school that they want you to come and do a presentation.
Sure. They can email me at sandraphilliphodge1 gmail@gmail.com or 499-9045.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
And I would like to say, it doesn't take rocket science to understand human rights. What we need to do is to start from a level of respect. Respect is one of the fundamental human rights. Everyone has the right to be respected and to be respectful. And if we start from that basic of just trying to respect others, I mean, out in the public, you see all levels of disrespect happening. You might have the right of way on a road, and the other side may be blocked with parked cars, and you probably would allow people you would give up your right so that somebody else could come. But then, after waiting for a while and the first chance you get, and you decide to take it, and somebody else comes and you decide, well, I'm not giving up my right now. I've already done it enough for this moment. And you insist. That is your right because you have the right of way. But for somebody else who is not aware of it or don't want to yield to you, it could cause a conflict, right? But if you understand, well, this person has the right, it's okay. It's your turn to back up. I mean, if they're not willing to yield their right this time, it's your turn to back up. And in so many cases in relationships is about rules, responsibility, respect, and all these things. And you have to know when to yield, when to insist that, your boundaries are not crossed, and all these things. You know, it's a balancing act, but it has to be founded on respect. Yeah.
And that knowledge of what the rules are as well as what the laws are.
Yes.
Is very important.
Yes. You have to know your legal rights as well as your human rights. Sometimes they overlap. Sometimes they're very different according to the circumstance. But you must know. It's incumbent on every person in society to know what their rights are, to know the laws and to know what the human rights are.
Yeah, and that's something I really want to, again, encourage persons to make sure that they have a copy of the Virgin Islands Constitution. Because even in there where it talks about right to a fair trial, you know, it talks about your right to remain silent, your right to request legal representation, and one provided for you if you can't through legal aid. So there's a lot of very important information right there in that chapter that I don't know that the average person knows about. So it's very key. It's a little arduous a bit to read, of course, because it's legal. But go ahead.
Yeah, a simple thing. I don't think it's legislated, but you have the right to conscience. Conscientious objection. You know, if you don't agree with something, you don't have to go along with it just because everybody else around you is. Right? You have the right to conscientious objection. Right? And I think a lot of times people feel intimidated to have a different view, different opinion, or to take a different road because they feel they're going to offend somebody else. But the other people need to know that this person has a right to be different, to take a different view, you know. And you don't crucify somebody just because their opinion is different from yours, or they choose to do something different, albeit that it's within the law. They could do something different from what you do, you know. So I think knowing the rights, knowing the human rights, and knowing the laws makes for a better understanding, a better environment or atmosphere for tolerance and cooperation, respect, and all these things.
Yeah, because just like how I would want you to respect my rights, I have to show that respect.
Exactly.
You know, as well, and not just demanding that you respect my right to do whatever it is I want to do.
Exactly.
So yes, I definitely agree in terms of, you know, for proper function of any society.
Yes.
It's important for us to understand, you know, the rights, and not just when you know, maybe in a political sense or when it becomes a legal issue, but that, you know, just on the everyday basis, like you use a reference of with families, where sometimes you have a lot of family issues that, you know, if we take a step back and really look at, you know, the bigger picture here, and not want to infringe on each other's rights and show more respect, that we take a different tack in how we deal with certain things. So. And so key for us to also break some of the cycles by teaching our young people, you know, the importance of knowing your rights and also respecting the rights of other persons, whether you know them or not. You know, the rights aren't just for your friends and family, but they are the rights for anybody and everybody.
I think it's a way of empowering people as well, to give them a sense of esteem, a sense of you know, a higher level of expectation. To give them a higher level of expectation, that you don't always have to accept being mistreated. You can demand justice. You can demand respect, you know, as well as you're willing to give it. And you can also encourage others around you. It's not just about you, but you can also be good examples. You can set the right example for the younger ones, if you're parents, if you're teachers or older people in society. You can show them that, you know, this is the right thing to do, you know.
Yeah.
Instead of beating down and criticizing and doing all the things that you try to achieve something by force.
Yeah. I find that's
you
one of
know.
the things I'm seeing happening with the right to bear arms in the U.S. It's like I have a right to also a peaceful society with no crime.
Exactly.
And if guns are a part of that equation, granted, you know, the wrong people having guns is basically the crux of the matter. But not wanting to have any type of regulation on that on the basis of, you know, I have a right to bear arms, which means, you know, everybody have a right to bear arms, whether they're mentally sound or not. So, you know, we have to strike a balance in our society and not go to the extremes, because I see that being a little bit of extremism there.
Yeah, that's
and
a bit frightening.
It's commercially motivated in a large way, I think, even though it's not talked about, where, you know, the gun lobbyists are representing the gun companies, and they're the ones that, you know, are benefiting financially from these things. So, you know, that's a whole nother show. Whole nother show.
I think we want to try and stay away from extremism because we don't see anything good coming from that. And we want to promote justice. We want to promote peace. We want to promote tolerance for the right things and respect for everyone, you know, and learn how to solve our problems, how to communicate. How to communicate properly with each, you know, between ourselves about issues that we have a vested interest in. Even when we are on different sides of the issues, we have to know how to find balance. We have to know how to look for the overall,
the greater good.
Yes,
greater
you
good.
know. And I think sometimes we have to be less selfish. We have to learn to be less selfish, you know.
Well, Sandra, I want to thank you for coming by, and hopefully this won't be your last time here. This is your first, but anytime Related by Humanity is more than welcome to come to the boardroom and to continue to keep us aware of the issue or the topic of human rights, and ensuring that, you know, that level of understanding is achieved for everybody in our society. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, Shaina.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Shaina Smith. Thanking you for tuning in to the Vigilate Dialogues this evening. And if you would like to be a guest on our program or have a topic, you can call us at the studio at 499-7815. This is your host saying, let's continue to change the conversation for a better Virgin Islands.